From the beautiful Finger Lakes region of upstate New York, this is the Dental Lighthouse Podcast. We take questions from anyone in the dental profession and discuss what it takes to win not only in dentistry, but in life. Business, leadership, relationships, parenting, health and wellness, money management, nothing is off limits on the Dental Lighthouse Podcast. I'm Jason Tenori, your host, and have over 20 years of experience to pull from. Learn from my mistakes and let me help you collapse time so you can become the best version of yourself. Yo, what is up? Dr. Jason here, Dental Lighthouse Podcast, and I am sharing with you today an episode that I did with Alex and Eric from just a couple of dentists. They're awesome, so funny, so real. They had me on their podcast talking specifically about the earned equity model that we have in our organization regarding partnership. And we didn't talk as much about the specific earned equity model as we did about what type of conversations really need to be had with associates about what they're really looking for. And having the courage to ask those questions and having the courage to have those conversations. So it was a great dialogue, and I think you guys will get a lot out of it, especially if you have one or two associates and you're trying to dance that fine line of, do they want to become a partner? What are their goals? What are their aspirations? Can I read their mind? And all of those things in between. So I hope you enjoy it. Reach out to me if you need anything. My contact information is on the website, dentallighthouse.com, and I'll talk to you soon.
I feel like I had another debate on a Facebook forum, like I feel like I normally do. Yeah. I feel like then, I don't know, you just sent me a podcast today about making sure not to let that stuff bother me too much, right? I feel like that was geared
yeah. I listened to something, I'm like, Eric needs to hear this.
Yeah. It was about like changing your life and not letting like those distractions bother you. But for some reason it bothered me again. But anyways, it was in relation to what to do with dentists that work for you, like associates or your team members, whatever. And do you give them stock or equity, whatever, any type of like ownership in your practice? Okay. And I know you and I kind of disagreed about this when we first started. And then obviously we're married, so you won out on that one. Yep. But, and I think at least for us and our decision, it was probably the right one looking back. But we ended up just keeping the practices completely ourselves, right? We didn't bring on any partners or we didn't give equity out, but we
didn't even really partner with each other.
I know that is
right.
It's like, they were two different practices. That's fair. But our goals were with the practices to grow them and then sell them, right? Yeah. It wasn't like say a 10, 20 year long plan.
Yeah, it wasn't a long term.
And then building like a big cluster of stuff and having this massive team behind us. Mm-hmm. But then, you go on Facebook and then you hear people kind of complain. They're like, giving your team equity in the company is like the dumbest thing I've ever freaking heard, right? And like people just get very
opinionated
one-sided
about
and opinionated. Yeah. And then I'd put a post out and I was like, oh, let me just ask if anyone's actually done this, because I felt like it would be a cool episode to go through and say who's actually like successfully implemented that type of a model where they let their team, they let the associates doctor buy into the upside of the practice and like, has it worked? Yeah. And so Jason reached out to us. A lot of you guys know him. He's on Facebook a lot. He's talking. I feel like you're pretty well known in the dental industry, right? And so when he reached out and said that he did it, I was like, oh sweet, I should reach out to him, right? Because he's up in this state of New York, right? Not Manhattan. I'm from Indiana, man. I don't know the right terminology on that, but I feel like you guys are very differentiated. But you're from like the greater state of New York. And you've got how many practices now, Jason?
We have 8.
8? Nice. And you're all within a certain community, right? Is it Finger Lakes? Is that right?
Yeah. Within the Rochester Finger Lakes community, basically upstate New York, Western New York, very, very far from Manhattan. We're closer to Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Toronto than we are New York City. So, but to your point, when people are from out West or even the Midwest, they just think that all New York consists of is New York City, but nothing could be further from the truth.
Oh no. It's like, I always joke, it's like people from, I'm stereotyping Californians, right? But I feel like their geography is like, they know like California, Arizona, Oregon, like they know the West Coast, but like if I say I'm from Indiana, they're like, that's just somewhere in the middle, right? Like no idea. Yeah. But no, so we wanted to bring you on because I know, and I'll let you tell maybe a little bit about your story and, what your goals have been with the practices and kind of how you've been able to implement a system where you let your team, whether they're clinical or non-clinical, actually buy into the practice. So yeah, if you want to kind of go through and kind of explain all that, that would be awesome.
Yeah. So it was kind of based out of necessity, right? So we had goals that we were going to grow a certain percentage year over year. I had these quote unquote big, hairy, audacious goals. And I slowly came to realize that the number one killer of that vision is going to be associate turnover and going to be not finding enough non-clinician, what I call super who's, right? And the best way that I have found, now there's many, many ways to skin a cat, but the best way that I have found to prevent associate turnover and to attract really good, quote unquote, C-suite people is by offering a level of equity. Now, I know everyone won't agree with that, and to each his own. There's no right or wrong answer here. It just ultimately depends on what you're looking to do, what kind of mindset you have as a founder, as an owner. But it's been really, really good for me to break off part of my organization to allow certain people to have equity and then to try to grow this thing as a team as opposed to just an individual. And at the end of the day, whenever we do sell, will I own 100%? Absolutely not. But what I will own percentage wise will be worth tremendously more than if I were to have stayed at a certain size at 100%. And I guess some people understand that concept and some people can't.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that goes back to, I don't know the details on it, but isn't that like kind of the concept of back in the day when Facebook was growing and like you either see guys like Zuckerberg or Elon Musk, like I think sometimes people think they like own Tesla or they own all of Facebook, but they own such a tiny percentage, right, of those companies. But the concept is you own such a smaller piece of such a massive pie that it ends up benefiting you more if you're looking at it from like a financial standpoint, right?
Right.
So yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it. And I mean, okay, so to take a step back, like if we want to break it down for people listening, right? If you were someone and you're like, hey, I'm just going to have my single office or maybe two, and I'm going to keep them for 30 years, and then maybe I'll eventually sell it. Would you say like the type of model you're doing works as well? I kind of want to break down where we think like, the traditional model of dentist owner 100% versus this type of a model works.
Yeah. It's a great question. So I think it depends on a couple of things. It depends on, let's say that 25 years that you're talking about. What's our growth rate going to be? Is it going to be 5% of a year or is it going to be 25% a year? Because if it's going to be 5% a year, then one or two doctors could really do that, right? But just by throwing in fee increases and you start to get rid of certain insurances, you can maintain a specific trajectory of say 5% growth year over year. If you're going to grow 20%, 25%, 30% year over year, it's a different animal. You can't do that just yourself. You can't do that without a continual influx of clinicians and levels of leadership. And because I've chosen the latter, I knew that I would need to incorporate some type of partnership model to make that happen. But the 1 to 2 location, I'm going to grow 5% year over year. Certainly don't need to entertain partnership unless you have an amazing associate that you don't want to lose, that you want to throw some golden handcuffs on, or that you're trying to grow this thing with. But to your point, yeah, you definitely don't need partnership if your growth aspirations are, mild, let's say, as opposed to moderate or excessive.
Okay. So going into yours, do you want to break down the specific kind of model you do? I know you said they were like, it's almost like stock they're buying in to the company, right? So can you break down how you become eligible, what that means? Like, I'll probably start riffing off a ton of different ones because, like, in my head, there's 10 questions, and I'm sure the listeners will.
Yeah, is there like a vesting schedule?
What happens if they leave, right? There's all that kind of stuff. So why don't you just start, if you want to just kind of go through it, and
the
then
details,
we'll kind of just bug you with a bunch of questions that come to our head.
Yeah, cool. So first thing I think we need to be clear about is in this restricted stock unit model, and again, there's many, many ways to do this. This is how I do it. I don't have these prospective partners buy in It's more of what we would call an earned equity model, right? So I kind of equate it to some of these movies that you watch, like the Tom Clancy movies and stuff, where the lawyer or the accountant is like trying to attain partnership. Like, I hope I get considered for partnership. Like, those guys aren't writing a check. They become partners based on how much revenue they brought into the organization. It's the same exact model. So when I have an associate who I feel is a good core value fit, which is our first criteria, a little subjective, but we try our best to not make it subjective. But if I feel that they're a good fit and I want them to stick around, then we'll offer them partnership. And what we basically do is say, here is your adjusted production hurdle. Just to make the math simple, we could say it's going to be $800,000 for the year. So for every dollar that you produce over 800,000, 20% of that will be given to you, or 20% of that you've earned equity. So if this particular doc does $1 million, that's a $200,000 delta. 20% of that is 40 grand. So they've now earned $40,000 in equity in the organization. Now, you asked you made a great vesting point. So those are shares. They're unvested, and they vest over 5 years. So 20% of the unvested shares vest every year. So they can continue to earn equity year over year. And then year over year, more and more of that will vest. So that's how we do it for clinicians. How we do it for non-clinicians, it's not based on adjusted production. Obviously, they're not producers. It's based on a combination of revenue and EBITDA. And it's more heavily weighted towards EBITDA. It's 40-60. So these C-suite people, these people that I've recruited and offered them some level of equity, they know what our revenue goals are. They know what our EBITDA goals are. And when they hit those goals, again, everything over the delta, they'll get a percentage of that that they've earned equity in. So we've been doing this program for almost 10 years now. I have 7 associate doctors that are partners. I have 25 associates total, 7 that are partners, and I have 2 non-clinicians that are partners. And just to kind of give you a frame of reference, the amount of equity that they've earned since we've started the model in total is about 8%. So I still own 92% of the organization, and those people own 8%. So the devil's advocates can be like, well, if a doc only owns 2%, like that's nothing. Like, what does that even mean? Like, well, 2 things. One is they didn't have to write a check, right? So they didn't really have to make a capital expenditure. 2, I don't really give them any responsibilities outside of just be a good dude, right? Just be a good example. When you walk down the hall, smile, do good dentistry. Like, that's all I need you to do. I don't need you to be the clinical director. I don't need you to do all these one-on-ones. I have people in place that are doing that. So these younger doctors, they love that they're a partner, but they also love that come 4:00, they're not thinking about work, right? They're going home and dealing with their personal things. And I'm thinking about work after 4:00. So it's a model, again, not for everybody, but if you have growth aspirations of a certain percentage year over year and you want to retain key people, it's a model that's worked so far for us.
No, that's really cool. So then what happens, right, in a situation like, and for anyone listening, if they're like, when we're saying vesting, right, we're saying that like if you had, 100 shares and you were saying like they'll vest over a 5-year period, that means that it takes a certain amount of time for you to have access for all those shares, right? So a couple things. What happens if someone leaves? Let's say you're an associate, you're like, I want to be a partner, right? You are a partner, you've been doing it for 3 years, right? And I guess at that point, you said it's 5 years, so what, 60% of your shares would have vested. And you're like, dude, we had a life situation happen, man. Like, I'm in New York, I'm moving to Florida, right? I just have to.
Yeah.
How do you get, because right, that's the challenge that I think we have right now with the DSO that we're partnered with, and that a lot of people probably are scared of, is like, how do you get off the ride, right? And I know in DSOs, a lot of it's becoming, well, you got to sell to someone else, right? And it's like, oh God, now it's more work. Now I have to figure out how to sell. So how do you handle those situations, if you've had to at all, where an associate, doesn't see it through to the eventual exit or selling of the group?
Yeah, great question. And we have had this situation a couple times, and it's very black and white. So if someone leaves on their own terms. Their spouse got relocated, they wanted to get out of dentistry. As you guys know, you're developing software, like whatever the reason is. If someone leaves on their own terms, then we'll buy their vested shares out over a 5-year period. And the valuation of those vested shares is 6x times whatever EBITDA was the year before. So we're super transparent with all of our books. You know what EBITDA is. We put a 6x multiple on it, which, as you guys know, is more than a typical one location.
That's very
generous.
Honestly, anyone listening, that's very good. I mean, if you're selling to a private dentist, that's higher than that. So what that's going to be. And I mean, that's not bad for like a smaller office selling to a DSO nowadays. So, I mean, right. I think that's very generous.
Yeah. And it works. So we just figure out what's the value of the shares that are vested. And then we just agree to buy them back, at 6x, and we have up to 5 years to do it. The two situations that we've had where we had to do it, the amount was small enough where we were able to buy it back within a year without it negatively affecting cash flow. But it just made sense, and we kind of left amicably. If the person leaves due to a violation of core values, due to a lawsuit, due to any one of those kind of, let's call them shady situations, and again, I haven't run into this, but the way that our contracts are written up, then they lose all vested and unvested shares, and they're just asked to leave. So I guess there's some subjectivity to that. Where I could probably have to get into litigation if I let someone go because I feel like they intentionally did something below a clinical standard, or if there was sexual harassment or something along those lines. But yeah, they would lose all of their vested and unvested shares if that's the reason that they left.
Okay, that makes sense. And does those similar rules happen with non-clinical as well? Is it similar, I guess, stipulations, right? Like you leave 5 years to buy you back, and then if you do something wrong, you just lose it. It's the same? All right.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Because I mean, as I'm sure you know, right? Like, and Alex and I have always had a debate on this. This one, I think I'm right. Actually, I actually do think I'm right on this one. So, when we were starting our practices, right? We knew Jason from, like we had circle of friends who were in like breakaway classes, right? At the same time as like, Jason was starting up his stuff, and then we were like a few years behind all of them. And so like just being in similar circles, we had kind of known each other. And the one challenge I always had, because we had initially came out and we're like, we're going to do a cluster of offices, right? Like that was like the thing, I think, when you graduated like 2013, like we did. It was like, be the entrepreneurial dentist. Like that was like I feel like the hot thing to do. And so we were like, okay, we'll move to Denver and we'll start a cluster of offices, right? I can work at one, she can work at one. And then, we can open a third one and have an associate in there, and a fourth and a fifth, whatever it is. And I always, from the beginning, was like, I think the biggest challenge is going to be associate turnover. And if they leave, right? Because between the two of us, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's actually probably better that you keep your circle tighter. Alex tends to do that more, which I think is actually a good thing. I'll just become best friends with everyone right away, so I probably get taken advantage of more. But you are much more of I want to keep this just the two of us, right?
So, yes, that's where it initially came from, because I normally have to say no to you right away. Like, no, that's not going to happen. But I think what happens is that us as dentists, we get scared of losing people, right? We're like, I don't want to have to train this person again. Let's just throw them some equity without actually thinking it through and going, okay, what is my long-term goal? What do I want this whole thing to be? And I think it's just like, let's just give them a percentage, and then they'll have to stay and they'll have to love me, and then everything will be okay. And I think that's where a lot of people go, well, that's so stupid. And it's like, well, yeah, it is. That's the part that's stupid, that you don't actually think about the big game plan of this whole thing. So that's where I'm coming from, where I'm like, no, I don't want to share anything.
No, because I think like between the two of us, I'm probably more of the impulsive one, right? So I'm the one that'll like, something will happen and I'll react fast, right? Whereas something will happen to Alex and she'll think through it more, right? And like go through scenarios. And so probably what happened is there was some associate we had or something, and I like saw them look at me a weird way, or like I saw them like drive by a different office and like slow down a little bit. And I was like, oh shit, we're going to lose, and we gotta give them equity. Right. And so I think that's where my brain tends to go to, is like that. But no, that is a good point, Alex. So anyways, that was our initial goal, was like, let's do that cluster. And then just for other reasons, right? We were like, all right, we have 2 offices. We're both working hard. Like, this is a lot. Probably what you were dealing with, right? Like, you're the single clinician. And then, so at what point in your journey from 1 office to 8 did you say, all right, I can't do this by myself? Or even if you had like a spouse helping or whatever it was, like, my immediate circle can't do this. I need help if I want to grow this.
Yeah, I mean, it was early on. It was, kind of probably in between 2 or 3 offices. We had a couple of associates that weren't partners yet. They were good people. And they were, I was really trying to coach them up. I was really trying to be cognizant to their wants and their needs. And some of them started to ask about partnership. And I'm like, I'm going to have to think this through and go down this rabbit hole. And in doing so, I had to get clarity with what I wanted long term. And when you mesh the fact that, okay, this is what I want long term, I want to have a $50 million organization, and I don't want to be selling off thirds of it, but I don't want to have to deal with associate turnover, and I want to be able to kind of put some golden handcuffs on these guys. It was just ended up being the perfect model for me. So like we talked about at the beginning, if you're going to be in a 1 or 2 location thing and you're going to grow, say, 5%, it's definitely not the model for you. But I could understand, selling a quarter or a third or not at all. Like, I feel that founders and owners, at least with my coaching clients, they're constantly talking about partnership, but what they don't know is what the guy or what the associate really wants, because they're afraid to have a conversation.
Yeah.
Like just totally ask. Agree. Like, it's not always money.
We all do that, though. I think we're so
we tiptoe around the hard
To
questions.
be fearful, right, and afraid of, like, I don't know what it is, but like we attribute more to like the negative outcome than the positive outcome a lot of times, right? So I think we just get afraid of that. And I know, like, in our situation, so like we have 2 practices, right? And when we owned them 100% before we sold, one of the associates was pretty much just running one of the practices, right? When Alex had stopped after we had our second kid from being clinical for a bit, took like a long maternity leave, and he just crushed it. Like, he is awesome. He is an A+ associate. Yep. He presents himself well. He knows how to talk to patients. He's good with the staff. He just has and he's got like charisma. He's just a good guy. And he, I knew he kind of wanted to look into, like, how do I buy into this? Is this my long-term thing? Because he felt some ownership in the practice. We gave them a lot of reign, right? The one other thing I think we did was good, that is a little off topic, but advice I would give to any owner bringing on associates: don't ever compete with them on like production or try to like stifle their growth, right? Let them, like, make sure you're feeding them first, right? And I think that's just we all know this as like leaders. That's what you should do, because then it helps grow you more. It's the same concept you're doing, right? But just at a bigger scale. And so anyways, we had gotten to the point where we said, we're going to sell to a DSO. And I mean, we were the only 2 that knew that, right? Maybe like a couple friends, but he didn't know yet. And then he brought up, partnership stuff, and he started to ask that. And it was tough because I didn't know the right time of when, like, I knew information that he didn't know, right? And it was one of those tough ones because you do lead out of fear a little bit. And I was like, well, I don't want to tell him too much because I don't want him to leave. Like, if I'm selling in 6 months and he leaves, maybe the DSO lowers the valuation. Maybe I have to go back and work there now, or there's something. And so you have, like you said, these missed expectations. And, it is one, I don't know if regret's really the right word, because I don't think you could do it a different way. I think that's just how you had to. But, we eventually told him that we were selling, and there was some disappointment there. Like, he wanted to buy in. And so, I still don't think I would have changed it based on what our goals were.
That's a hard situation, Eric, because like you really can't tell anyone.
No.
Versus like just a normal office, a normal, like, here's my associate that's working. You just have the conversation. Like, there's nothing like overriding it, that like a big, sale or anything like that. So,
but that also goes back from like, I need to be liked. So like, that was tough for me, right? Like, like I have that personality trait. So even if I'm not intentionally doing it, it kind of gets me a little bit. But yeah, like, if we weren't doing that and it was a long-term play, I probably would have reached out to you and asked you like how you set up your stuff, because it seems like you had done it right. But like I said, our situation was, we wanted an exit plan, and it didn't make sense. If we knew we were going to sell in 6 months to a year, don't go give equity to like an associate at that point, right? Like, you're 100%. Only going to do that, like Jason's alluding to.
It's a long-term play.
Yeah, it's a vesting schedule, right? Like, the trade-off there is like, I'm giving up some of my value for your long-term commitment, those golden handcuffs, like you're saying.
Yeah.
So why do you think you didn't do something like phantom equity versus like actually giving them like actual equity in stock?
Okay, story time. Remember when my startup got hacked like 6 months in?
You tell this story every month.
Well, our IT company did get hacked. It took down like 70 offices here in Colorado, took weeks to fix, and over 50 grand in ransom fees.
Wait, how does the story get worse every time?
But here's the plot twist. The only person who actually helped me, Ruben, the founder of Dark Horse Tech, not the IT company that we were using.
Yeah, I remember that. He literally talked you off a ledge for a month. He was like the Kevin Spacey to your Samuel L. Jackson.
Anyways, we've used Dark Horse ever since. If the founder's willing to bail you out before you're even a customer, you need to go with that IT company.
Totally. And listeners of the show get their first month free with Dark Horse Tech. So make sure to mention just a couple of dentists when signing up. Now back to the episode.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely could have. And we actually fooled around with Phantom Equity for the first year or two just to basically beta test the model. Mm-hmm. I don't know deep down why I didn't ultimately go to that. I just felt like if I was going to run a legitimate business that wasn't just like a mom and pop kind of hobby thing, then I needed to do it the right way. Now I could be very wrong on that, but yeah, we did experiment with Phantom Equity, and it was fine. It just comes down to kind of what you guys are saying is, it's like when patients call the office, they don't know what to ask for, right? So they're like, okay, do you take my insurance or can I get a cleaning schedule? Those are the two questions, right? Mm-hmm. And I think it's the same way with associates that are kind of young and ignorant and naive to the situation. They're like, I want to be partner. Like that's the only question they really know to ask. But when you start to peel back the onion, like, well, why? It's like, well, because I want more of an allowance for CE. Well, just ask me for that, and I can give you more CE allowance, right? Or I want to be a voice at the table. Well, if you have ideas that you want me to think about, I apologize for not asking you about them or for you bringing them to me. And then there's other docs that they just want to see, they want a business card that says partner on it, right? They don't want to have any of the responsibilities that come with partnership, but they just want to be, partner in name only. Perfect. I can do that too. So I just think so many founders, to your point about fear, so many founders kind of get trapped into I gotta sell 15, 20, 25% to keep this person. That you don't necessarily know that. What you really need to be doing is identifying what they are currently yearning for and try to serve that need.
Yeah, that's a good point. Because I think a lot of us too, and I think it comes from the owner perspective. We come out of dental school. A lot of us don't have business backgrounds, right? Like we have some friends that were like finance guys before, right? So they're probably coming in with a leg up, right? And when they own a practice, but a lot of us don't have any type of business background. And so I think we're even ignorant too as owners a lot, right? Like you went through, it seems like from what I'm hearing, and like did the research, tried to figure out what are different models. You probably reached out to mentors. You probably got coaches. You probably did all that stuff so you could make an informed decision. Whereas I think a lot of us as owners will go, yeah, 20%. Okay, that sounds good. Because in your head, you just think it sounds fine, but you have nothing to back that up. Maybe you've heard it. Maybe your broker or a rep told you that's normal, right? And you're like, oh, well,
right.
Everyone else is doing it. I should just do it that way.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I think it comes from both ends. I think you have two sides that are both ignorant to how business works and they're trying to talk together. And
And they just
like
make
the blind
bad
leading the blind, right?
decisions.
And that's what ends up happening. And that's why I think a lot of partnerships fail. And to your point, the one thing that I think you're doing right, in my opinion, having us owned practices, had associates, sold to a DSO, seeing some of like the positives and the challenges in the DSO space is you set expectations and you're finding partners that maybe their upside isn't as high because like you said, they're not buying a quarter or a third of whatever, but you also aren't giving them a lot of responsibility outside of just being a good clinician. I think that's the sweet spot that we'll find out, right? You'll find out whenever you move on to your next or sell, you'll find out if that was the right thing. But I think that's kind of the sweet spot is what you're finding because, DSOs are struggling with finding long-term partners, right? Like we have some offices near us that are more like traditional corporate DSOs, right? And it's like every 6 months there's a new associate in there. I get concerned with our practices that like when we eventually step out, right? Like that same thing is going to happen. And so that is scary. And I wonder if I feel like a lot of dentists or if they're entrepreneurial dentists, if they want to go start out their own thing, they're just going to do it, right? Like your model isn't great for them, right? Because they're going to want to maybe they are inspired by what you're doing and they want to do a $50 million, organization at some point. But I feel like there's a lot more associates who just want to feel a little bit more like an owner and have a little bit more upside, but I don't know if they want all those headaches because I think that's one thing that people don't realize until you go through it is how hard it really is.
Yeah, such a good point. So, we talked at the beginning about how there's so many different types of partnership models and phantom equity and profit sharing and individualized incentives and all these things. And I think those are all great tools depending on the situation. Myself personally, as an associate, would be the worst candidate for the model that I have in place.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because I have to be the alpha. I have to make every major decision, right? I would not be the right person. But luckily, the older I get, the younger everyone else gets. And this type A persona is now in the minority. Not to be sexist, but as we know, more and more women are graduating from dental school. They want to work 3 days a week and make six figures and also be a mom, right? Like I shouldn't say they can't. It's difficult to do all of that and leave work at work when you own a practice, in a silo. So I just feel, to your point, like this model just gives such an opportunity to the 80% of docs that are out there that want to earn some equity, that want to make a little bit more money, that want to say their partner, but don't want all the other BS that comes with running a practice on your own.
And I think that's just true. And we see so much everyone gets tunnel vision, right? So like, at first you might see the model you're trying to do and you're like, but no one's going to want to do this because I wouldn't want to do it. Right.
Right.
And I think that was one thing we both learned too, is like, you assume the things you're doing, everyone else wants to do. Cause I think that's just kind of how our brains work. And we have to sometimes take a step back. And I think that next level of like, I don't know, growing up or maturity is starting to understand like, not everyone thinks the same way you do, right?
Right.
At least I had to. Right. But Alex is our resident female on the podcast.
Oh gosh.
You can speak though on.
I'm pretty alpha.
No, but in a good way. Like my point on this is when you had brought up the part, and we've brought this up on a couple other episodes as well, is like it's okay to acknowledge too that the I don't know if it's demographics, the gender is like who's graduating from dental school is different, and you've brought this up out before, Alex, too, and I think it's okay to acknowledge that different genders traditionally, and even for probably a long time in the future, are going to have different goals in mind, different things they need, different expectations, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. It doesn't just have to be black or white. Like women don't just have to be like only associates and have no ownership, or they have to take on everything and they leave motherhood, at the door. It's like, that doesn't have to be it. I think that's why a lot of women do get into dentistry, because there is that flexibility. There's flexibility there. So,
oh yeah, we even joke too. Like some of my friends who are like Mormons, right? Like you're always like, why are there so many Mormons in dentistry, right? And it's like, oh, because I remember one of them told me, they were like, because it's a good lifestyle, right? Like if you wanted a lifestyle practice, and they value a lot of, if they're able to, like, have kids, right? Have a traditional, like kind of that traditional sense of marriage and family and all that. Dentistry is a great field for that, right? If you want to work,
no
the
question.
joke is, right? Like you're working 3 to 4 days a week, right? You have tons of family time if you want that type of lifestyle practice. So,
right.
And I don't know. I think sometimes people just skirt around talking about that, but it's okay to have that discussion.
So out of the 25 associates that you have and 7 are partners, where's the gap? Is it because the other associates don't want to do the partnership model, or they haven't reached that criteria yet?
Yeah, it's probably a combination of both. Like 2 years ago, we had 15 or 16 docs, right? So we're in a rapid growth model, and those additional 10, they just haven't been around long enough to really get a feel for each other and see, are you going to be a good long-term fit? Is this something that you're interested in? Now we're starting to have those conversations through our monthly one-on-ones. But I'm just super hesitant to just, back up the truck for anybody. So, and we just have some people that truly it's not of interest to them, right? Like, even though it's really no commitment from them outside of, being a good core value fit and being a good role model, they just don't have an interest. And again, to Eric's point, in my mind, I'm like, how could you not have an interest? Like, this makes no sense. Like, in my mind, this is free money, but people are not all wired like me. Right. And I have to like understand that and have to be okay with that.
And then are you bringing this up during like the hiring process, like for associates and for like non-clinical staff? Is this something that you do bring up to them, or is it kind of like no one talks about it until you kind of get that feeling for them?
Yeah, great question. So it's routinely brought up with the doctors because it's something that everybody wants to talk about. And I want to be the first person to bring it up, right? I don't want to be like sitting on my hands being like, I hope they don't bring up partnership. I hope they don't bring up partnership and then not be qualified to answer the question. So we have a simple FAQ document. How our recruitment process goes is I set up a Zoom call with them. It's 10 minutes and I just get a feel for, okay, should I continue this conversation? If after a 10-minute Zoom call, I'm like, okay, this, their hair was combed. They actually, they were clothed. They know how to communicate. I'll send
the bar is so low.
The bar is
I'm looking
low.
at myself now. I was like, man, if I was on a Zoom call with Jason right now, that call wouldn't last 10 minutes. That would be like 60 seconds. And he'd be like, oh, sorry, it's done.
Not true at all. So once they get kind of past that initial screening, then I'll send them an FAQ document that's got maybe 15 or 20 questions on it. What is our treatment planning philosophy? How did the docs get paid? What insurances do we participate with? And one of the questions talks about equity, and we describe this particular situation in a couple sentence paragraphs. So it's just enough to make sure that they understand equity is available for the right person at the right time. We do not mention it for non-clinicians, really because I'm reserving that level of equity for true C-suite players. And when you get to a certain size, it's your head of HR, it's your head of IT, it's operations, it's finance. And those people are hard to find. And for them to make a move, unless they're homegrown, for them to make a move, there needs to be, traditionally, it's been my experience, there needs to be some type of incentive beyond just a good W-2 compensation. So if they can see potential in taking the practice, they understand what my vision is, and they want to be part of that, then they traditionally want to be part of the RSU model as well.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense. You'd have to have I feel like a higher bar with non-clinical, and the pool would be smaller as well.
Yeah.
They're going to have to care about the business, right? More so than potentially even the associate does.
But I don't want people to hear this thinking like, well, I have a great office manager and I was hoping to offer her some equity and now it sounds like I shouldn't. Like, again, ultimately depends on what you're trying to do, but I think there's so many great ways, to Alex's point about phantom equity or individualized incentives, where you could certainly encourage someone to go above and beyond a specific baseline when it comes to treatment presentation or when it comes to AR. I mean, there's so many different things that you can figure out a way to incentivize people beyond a certain delta or beyond a certain threshold that I don't think enough docs use correctly.
And I think you should use,
that's the big word.
You should use those tools first, right? Because as you were saying that in my head, I'm like, long term, doing something like you're doing probably works really well if you're in growth mode and you want that pie to just get bigger and bigger and you're helping everyone. You can make an argument, though, that it's probably harder to unwind than just like a bonus, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Both, like, from every aspect, right? Like you even alluded to it, like from like a lawsuit, right? Like you're not going to have an office manager who you're like, hey, we didn't hit bonus this month. They're gonna be like, I'm going to court. I'm bringing an attorney on, right? Because you didn't give them, you just give them a bonus, right? Like, right. And the point is, I think.
Oh, you mean like less consequences?
Yeah, because I think one overarching thing on this is like, you need to be thought out before you do it, right? We said it before. My personality would be more like, 20%. Okay, let's figure it out, right? And then just you try to do it really fast. And then you have to be very methodical about this. Talk to people who have done it, right? Whether, like I said, that's a mentor or coach or whatever it is, and make sure you're setting it up right on the front end. Anytime we don't do that, it always ends up backfiring, right? So if it takes another 6 months or whatever it is, just do it. And like you said, make sure you understand what your goals are before.
Well, yeah. And even like you were saying too, it's like, do a trial run with a bonus, right? That's what kind of you're saying. It's like, if you think like, oh, I need it to be tied to this type of KPI. Okay, well then try that with a bonus first, because it might not actually work. Like if it's tied to AR, if it's tied to, whatever it is, it's better to try it where you can reverse it versus like, oh crap, I really messed this up and now I'm going to have to figure out how to change this whole thing.
Or part of it is you being the leader, right? Like you were saying, you have to make sure you're qualified. You know how to answer all the questions. If you're bringing on someone who's a younger doctor, right? And maybe, chances are they don't really they may understand stocks. I doubt they've been invested in other venture capital deals, right? Yeah. Or with, in different funds, right? And have a working knowledge of that. So you need to make sure they even understand what the equity is, right? Like, what is the upside to it? What are the expectations with it? Like, is this something like you were saying, do I actually want this or do I actually not like, does this move the needle for me or for you, Jason, right? Like, is it actually solving the issue we're trying to versus just doing it just because? Alex, do you know what makes me the happiest?
Yeah, when you go to Starbucks and order Americano and they give you a cold Americano when you really wanted a hot Americano. And so now you get to keep both the cold Americano and the new hot Americano.
Yes, but I'm talking about saving money at my dental office. I was able to save $20,000 last year so easily by switching to Nada Payments as my merchant service provider. We passed the credit card fee onto the patient, and in the words of ChatGPT, it's been a game changer.
I still think the free coffee thing makes you happier.
And for all of our listeners, Nada Payments is offering a deal where your practice pays as little as $25 a month and only 1.5% plus 25 cents for debit card transactions. Go check them out at nadapayments.com. Now back to the episode.
Yeah, that's a great point. And you know, through some basic modeling, you can give them that information. You can say, like, you know, if you routinely do $100,000 over your production hurdle for the next 5 years, and we maintain an EBITDA percentage of 20%, so our organizational value will be worth this. Like, your equity will be worth this. Like, is that attractive to you? And more often than not, yeah, hell yeah, it's attractive to me, especially because all I had to do was produce dentistry and just be a good fit for the practice. So if you can lay it out in that way of this is what the return on the investment is going to be in 3 years, in 5 years, in 10 years, then it really creates some stickiness for the docs and for the non-clinicians.
So I'll kind of wrap it up on one other question I had. And this just kind of comes from more like kind of some stuff we're working through, right? Just like being in the DSO space now. And I'm not saying it's good or bad, right? It's just our situation is have you had associates ever say, okay, this is an awesome deal, but I don't want to be holding this for 20 or 30 years. Like, how do you handle what's
the exit?
Yeah. And you don't have to share what yours is, right? Like, that's very personal for a lot of people. And I'm not asking you to do that, but how do you manage those expectations? Because that is a question I would think I would ask. I'd say, okay, well, maybe I've got a 10-year time horizon, but I don't know what Jason's is, right? Like, how do you answer those questions to people when they have those type of questions?
Yeah, super good question. And I feel like, again, in my own head, I feel like it's a very simple answer. It's similar to what we talked about when the doctor is going to leave. So my play is generational. Like, I don't have any aspirations to sell. Now, will I sell? I doubt it. I really do. But who the hell knows? And I can't expect associates to read my mind, right? So if I have an associate that has 10 more years until they retire, but I'm not ready to sell, then we just look at their vested shares and I write them a check for 6X over 5 years, right? So I'm just buying back whatever they've earned. And we've agreed upon a valuation of 6X times the previous year's EBITDA. So it's kind of foolproof. And I'm sure there's going to be loopholes and stuff, but that's how we're doing it.
That's thought out, yeah.
And so are they on the same playing field as you? Like, is everyone in the same, like, holding company, or are there different like classes of shares, right? So, like, if you say sold, like, you know, we're kind of seeing sometimes that it seems like this probably happens in private equity is like they're going to eat first, right? They're always going to get their money first before other people. Do you have your setup in a similar situation where it's tiered, or is it kind of everyone's in the same pool of shares?
Yeah, I think I'm answering your question correctly when I say, first and foremost, the shares are at the organizational level. They're not at the clinical level, right? So we're all kind of,
you're in hold.
We're all kind of at the, I'm sorry?
You're like an all in holding company, right? If you were to say in the deal. So you guys are in hold co.
Yeah. But the other part of your question is the shares are worth the same amount. Like, my shares are worth the same amount as my associate shares, but they are different classifications. And that really just comes down to voting rights, right? So, as long as I maintain A shares, for lack of a better term, and they only have B shares, then any major decision is only going to be made by B. Now, I'll obviously, to be a leader that I want to be, I'm going to take their input and their feedback and stuff like that. But there's no boardroom that says, you know, well, you need to count our vote because we own 3%. No, that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
The other thing that's, and again, and I've done a lot of one-on-one coaching where people have gotten into this. The way that our distributions are set up is, if I take a distribution, then everyone gets a distribution based on the percentage of ownership that they have. If I choose not to take a distribution, then nobody gets a distribution. And I see this all the time with clients where there's a bunch of money left at the end of the month or the end of the quarter, and the founder doc wants to pay down debt or wants to pay cash for a CBCT. And the minority partner is like, I want a distribution. So there's got to be clarity on how do we handle free cash flow at the end of the day, because you could be super risk averse, super risk tolerant, and choose to handle that money differently. So I just love the idea that nobody gets anything unless I choose to take something, and then it just disseminates down through all the partners.
I like it. You should share this model with like DSOs because it does work well, right? Because like to your last point, that can be with some partners a point of conflict is, they either have a lot of debt layered onto the practice, right? Or, you don't place implants, but all the other doctors do, and they want to buy a CBCT, and then that hurts your distributions, right? Because now that hits right? Now your cash flow is impacted. And so, but at the end of the day, and that's just how the DSOs are set up, they're going to make those decisions. Like they have full rights on all that. Like you're not going to be able to make those choices. But no, I think what you've set up is really, really like interesting in a good way. Like cool. It seems like it's working well for you guys. Obviously, proof is in the pudding, and you've got you said 7 or 8 docs doing it now. Is that and then like a couple non-clinical. So yeah.
So we made some mistakes along the way. Like I'll tell you, I'll let you in on one mistake where, again, I don't want to paint this picture like, oh my gosh, we have it so buttoned up, it's perfect, right? So like I said, the example I gave you was, okay, we're going to set a hurdle, let's say 800,000, and 20% over that is what they get. So my first associate, who's still with me, love her to death, we stole her from an office where she was literally doing cleanings all day. So the first year, I think she did like 650 grand in adjusted production. And that was the year that we were setting up this model. So we set her hurdle at, I think, 700. So we're like, hey, you keep doing what you're doing. You'll get a little bit more. You get a little bit more. Well, over the next couple of years, like she just started engulfing CE. She just started becoming like this super dentist. She was doing $300,000 a month. Right. So all of a sudden now her hurdle is like 750 grand, and she had a $2.5 million year. And I'm like, whoa, that's a lot of money. So, I when I started seeing that, I was like, okay, guys, I got to go back and rewrite some of these contracts. So I started putting caps on what everybody can earn on a yearly basis. Yeah. And doctors, to your point, Eric, about let's beta test a bonus plan. I've seen these docs think they've got the best bonus plan. Hey, my office manager, we're going to do $200,000 is the goal, and everything above that, I'll give you 10%, because they only expect to do 210 or 220 or 225. And then they have like a $400,000 month, and they're writing a check for like 40 grand. And I'm like, okay, that was probably a mistake. Like we probably need to go back and rewrite the cookbook on that one. Yeah.
And then they don't almost do anything where there's like any downside protection too. So if it's like a crap month, it's just like wiped out, right? So like all you're doing is like paying people when it's about, Right. Well,
we could talk about bonuses all day.
Oh yeah, that could be a whole other topic. But no, you should. It was awesome to have you on and kind of share this. I love, and we both love just hearing different perspectives of how different people just do things successfully, right? Like that's just awesome to see.
And this isn't just theory; like you've done it, and it's an option, which is great. So
we'll have to. If you're ever open to it, you gotta come on again. We gotta find another topic because it's awesome.
I'd love to. You guys are easy to talk to, and I appreciate that. Good conversation.
Awesome. Well, enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. That wraps up another episode of the Dental Lighthouse Podcast. You have a choice today. Choose to be a lighthouse. Lighthouses are powerful and steadfast. They are beacons of light for others to reference when life gets turbulent. Go out into the world today and become a lighthouse for someone. Give more than you get. True joy comes from serving others. Start today. I'm Jason Tenori, your host. Thank you for listening to the Dental Lighthouse Podcast. For more information, podcast show notes, or links to anything that we have discussed today, please check out our website, thedentallighthouse.com. We would love to hear from you. If you would like to get on the show, please email us at podcast@thedentallighthouse.com.